3 tools, 1 weekend, 0 developers. This is the exact process I use to take my business from $12,000 a month to $120,000 a month in just under a year using AI to build business tools. And today I'm showing you how building an offer calculator, a client onboarding sequence, and a proposal template generator using Claude Fable 5 in just under 30 minutes. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Jacqueline. I own a brick and mortar service-based business, and I've been using AI to grow and scale my business in my free time. So if you're a business owner or solopreneur and you're trying to figure out how to implement AI in your business, you're in the right spot. So let's dig in. So for my first project, I'm going to build a profitability calculator. And I've decided for this example, I'm going to use the example of a salon. You could change out the service type and the pricing information to adapt it for your specific business. But I'm working inside Claude Cowork. If you don't have Claude Cowork, then I'll put a link in the description so you can grab it. But I'm going to start just chatting with it in Cowork mode. And I'm going to say, build me a salon package profitability calculator. And I'm going to start being very specific here about what it is I want to include and how I want it to behave. So I'm going to say I run a salon and I want to bundle services into packages for clients. But I need to know if my discount is too deep and if I'm still going to be making money. And I've given it some sample services here and the cost for the service. So for example, women's haircut, $65 retail, $8 product cost, 45 minutes, and a stylist can complete the work. So I've just kind of hit enter and submitted all this information to Claude, and we'll see what Claude comes back with. So Claude has asked me a bunch of questions, and I'm filling in the information here for it. I want it to tell me if I'm going to be making money on this particular bundle or package that I'm putting together for the client. So I'm going to enter in what I want my minimum gross margin to be. And I want to include information such as the commission for the staff, and I'm going to give it just how to basically calculate that, although it could figure that out by itself, and telling it to round prices to the nearest $5 so that it's easy for us to remember. And here's how it should work. I pick the services from the drop down and I set the quantities. It shows me the full retail value if I were to sell them separately, and then I'm going to enter a package price that I'm considering for the client. And then it will tell me approved or counter, meaning that the margin is too low, here's the minimum price, or it will reject it and just say this is too cheap, you would lose too much money. So Claude is working, thinking about all of the things that I've included. I have all my pricing in here, and I have my calculation that I wanted it to use. You don't have to get this specific necessarily. You could just tell it, this is what the service is, this is how much it costs me for product, and this is how much it costs me for time, and then it will calculate the profitability for you. And I'm going to say that I want to deploy this as HTML and JavaScript because I just want it, for the sake of this video, to be a freestanding web page that I can open and test with you. And here we go. Here's our profitability calculator. Now, this actually looks pretty decent. I wouldn't say that the design is stellar or anything like that, but it's fully functional, and we can select products that we want to add into the package and come up with pricing. So for example, a women's haircut is $65 and product cost is $8. If we were going to say, let's say, for example, that we were just going to offer a bundle of 3 of these, and maybe we were going to offer 3 of them. Maybe they buy 3 haircuts, they get a free color, for example. So I'm going to take this blowout out of here. And I'm going to say that I want to do the package price for $99. And so it's going to give me a counter and tell me what the minimum price should be for that package so that I still remain profitability based on the requirements that I gave it over here in my prompt. So this is definitely something that you could use. You just add in your own products and your own services, what your threshold is in terms of the amount of money you need in order to remain profitable for that service. And then you can build your own packages on the fly. This is a great tool for solopreneurs, small business owners who don't have their own sales team and maybe can't run these numbers really quickly in their head, or this is a great tool to give your salesperson. So now I can use this information from the counter offer that would allow me to sort of build in a little bit of a buffer in my profitability. So if I wanted to do maybe $199 for if they buy 3 haircuts, they get a full color. Then if I price it at $199, which is a fantastic deal, then I have increased my gross margin from, I think it was 30% before to 55%. So this is a great little widget for you to spin up in Claude Cowork and just use it to kind of benchmark whether or not it's profitable for you to do a package for your client. Okay, next up, I'm going to build a client onboarding tool. And so this is just a little like workflow that helps the client know exactly what the process is once we have agreed to a sale. So then this kind of tells them what to expect next. So I'm going to say, build me a client onboarding tool. I'm going to make it a web page. And I want it to have these screens. I want it to have a welcome screen with a personalized greeting. I want the message to be warm and friendly. It should include the business name and the logo. I want it to use my business colors, which are black, white, and antique gold, and it should look classy, high-end. I want it to say what the next steps are. So here's what to expect. Here's the step-by-step visual timeline of the service process. Here's what we need from you. Create a checklist of the things that we need from the client that they need to provide or prepare. And I wanted to also include our policies, our cancellation process, and I wanted to prompt them for their payment information, and I wanted to tell them exactly how we intend to communicate with them moving forward. I want it to be short and scannable, not super wordy. I want to also have a step that says meet your team so that it tells them who their team is going to be, who's going to be providing their service, maybe like a 1 or 2 sentence little bio and a little picture. So it's like their photo, their name, and their role in the business. Something that would build trust immediately and let them get familiar with who they're going to be working with. And then I also want to include the next steps for their contract, and I want it to have a CTA to confirm the appointment and direct them to the contact info. Okay, and we're going to just hit send, and we'll see what happens. So it's asked me a couple of questions. What's the name of your business and type of service? It's asking me, do you have team member info. I gave it a fake company name. You would put yours in there. I asked it to just use placeholder information, but you could definitely attach images and details about your staff members. And then it asked me for payment info. I'm going to include payment forms, but it did ask me if I wanted to connect to my payment processor. So it would step you through the process if that's what you wanted to do. Of course, you don't have to include payment options in this workflow if you don't need to, or maybe you've already collected payment or you're going to do so at a later date. And so it just asks you questions as like a wizard as you're going through, and super easy to use. And you just walk through the steps and answer the questions as appropriate for your business. And you can see Claude is thinking down here. It's adding the tasks and building out the entire workflow. So let's see what it comes up with. And so you see, you don't have to know how to code anything. You just have to be able to tell Claude what your problem is, or what kind of solution tool you're looking for, what kind of utility would make your life a lot easier in your business, and you just chat with it. And so you want to do it in either Cowork or Claude Code. I'll be doing a future video that kind of goes through the differences between the two. And so building little tools like this has just helped me to amplify the ability I have with my clients. It helps me kind of create tools that make it a nicer experience for them. And so let's see what Claude spun up here. Acme Home Cleaning Service, refined care for the spaces that you love. So we're so glad you're here. It did put a placeholder in here for Sarah. It's asking me to put the name, so I'm just going to put my name and hit begin. What to expect. Tells them exactly what the process is going to be. And then next, what we need from you: home access, parking instructions, pet arrangements, etc. This could easily be different files that you need from them. Maybe you need, insurance information, or you need a PDF file or a resume or whatever. And so you can just step through exactly what you need from them. And you would just feed all of that in when you're chatting with Claude. You would tell them exactly what you need to supply. For the client to supply in order to get started. These are our policies: our cancellation policy, how to reschedule, satisfaction. If you're not happy, here's what to do if you're not happy, etc. And so all of these things can just be so helpful. I have found in my years in business that if you can manage the expectation, you can minimize the number of complaints or problems down the road. Payment information. So I just would fill in my payment information here. And then here's how we'll stay in touch. You can customize all of this. If I didn't like this, for example, let's say I changed my mind, I don't want to include the payment information. Maybe that's a little too forward for where we're at in this stage of interaction. So I would just come over here in my chat and say, I've changed my mind. I don't want to collect payment information from this client in advance. So can we remove that step of the process, please? And so we talked about how to stay in touch, and here's, meet your team. So you've got like different cards. You could include little photos, etc. You could include contact information for each person. You could even tell Claude to email all of this content to the person so that they would have it instead of, if it is a lengthy process, you could just email it to them and they would have it as a link to refer back to. And then next steps for your contract: review it, sign it. You could have links to the contract. You could have it take them to a DocuSign or whatever. But I'm going to go ahead and submit this and say, can you take out that payment information, please? And so this is something that would normally take you, it would take a developer, a web developer, at least a day or two to build this. And so that could get expensive over time if you're building stuff out like this all the time. And so you can see it's just like reloading all of the information. I could also say that I don't want it at the welcome screen to prompt them for their first name. I want it to know that automatically. And so maybe this is triggered. You could actually trigger this whole sequence once you have added a client into your CRM or into your client database. All right, here we go. It says, let's open this up. And I just want to page through just to make sure that it took out the payment information. Our policies, how we stay in touch, meet your team, what's next for your contract. You're all set, friend. So simple as that. Like, just tell it what you need. And then if it doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for, just tell it what you like, what you don't like. Here's one that I did just in between recording this. I decided, okay, what would that look like for my med spa? How could we change the aesthetic or the workflow? And so you can see this is still pretty much the same kind of workflow and kind of stepping them through the process or the journey, the client journey, but super elegant, right? Here's your appointment details, Wednesday, July 9th with Jacqueline. So easy just to modify it and revamp it on the fly. Okay, so now for our third project. And if you want me to create a project and do a demo live of something that you need in your business, drop it in the comments and I might build it in a future video. So for my third project, I'm going to click over here, creating a new task in Claude Cowork. I'm going to click in this chat field and I'm going to say, I need to create a proposal template system that allows me to generate a proposal really quickly. I need the proposal to be sophisticated looking, but not sterile. I want it to be professional and it needs to include the following things. Okay, I want it to include the name of my company. I wanted to include the name of my company, and I am Acme Pest Control Company. We wanted to include an executive summary that says something like, based on our conversation, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to include a problem statement that says, we discussed that you are having problems with ants and bees, and I want it to also include what the objective is, what the service pattern is going to look like, how often we're going to visit, what we're going to do at each visit, basically outlining the scope of work. And then I want to also discuss in the proposal, I want to mention what some of the cautions are, like they need to keep their pets out of the area, etc., for maybe 2 days. I also want to include any other deliverables, like if we're going to leave any products there for them to use after we leave. So I basically asked it to include things like what the objective is, what the timeline is going to look like, service pattern, etc., how often we're going to visit, what we're going to perform at each date, and what we're treating. I asked it to include a couple of package options so that we could potentially upsell, and then I also would like it to include, what else should we include? Let's also include warranty information or any kind of guarantee. Let's include some potential risks. Yeah, that sounds good. And we're going to hit send. Let's see what it comes up with. So I'm asking it to create this as a proposal generator. So let's see if it picked up on that. How do you want to generate the proposals quickly? Let's do an interactive HTML. I like interactive HTML just because everybody has a web browser. Warm and professional. Do you have set prices for the 3 packages? Let's say the 3 packages are going to be 200, 350, and $550. And I also want, for the generator though, I want it to know that those prices are going to be different based on the proposal being generated. And so you'll see most of the time Claude will ask you clarifying questions or ask you for supporting information. So you don't have to try to create this master prompt that includes everything or is wholly comprehensive, because it will ask you what it needs in order to complete the task. And so you see now it's building it out. So we'll wait and see what it comes up with. And here it is. And I have to say, this is pretty nice looking, professional. And so here's the generator part over here on the left-hand side. Proposal generator, I can type in the client's name. So let's say that it's John Lebowski. And 123 Main Street. Proposal date valid for 30 days. Ants and bees is what we discussed. And so I'm just going to say carpenter ants in the kitchen and along the back deck, active bee nest under the front porch, and what looks like a hornet's nest in the tree in the front yard. Also stated that they have had problems with spiders in the past. Extra note for the executive summary. You mentioned that you have a party coming up and you have guests staying for the week at the end of July. I can include the inspection date. Let's just say today. And treatment dates. Let's say their first treatment is going to be next week, and then 2 weeks after that, and then 30 days after that. 08/27/2026. Okay. And then the follow-up assessment is going to be on September 15th. Okay. And I could include scope details here, which is great. I love that this is collapsible so that it doesn't take up a ton of space. And I'm going to generate the proposal. And look at that. It already filled everything in. And it's as simple as that. I mean, 3 projects in under 20 minutes. And just think about if you could put an hour a day or an hour in the weekend into something that really is a headache, a major headache for you, and just think about the things that you could build to benefit your business. Or if you're a solopreneur and you're wearing all the hats, these are the things that I'm building on the weekends or in my free time. And it has helped me to build my business from 12K a month to 120K a month using tools and features just like this. If this video was interesting to you, click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow along. Every week, I'm going to be building more tools and widgets just like this. If you want me to build something out for you, or if you have an idea for something that I should build in one of my future videos, drop it in the comments below.